In my experience, the most addictive game I've ever played is a MUD. I don't know if you've ever played that. Most people haven't. And if you're any younger than me, you almost certainly haven't. It's a very ancient technology from when the internet first came out, but it's basically a text-based game. Everything is just purely text. There's no graphics whatsoever. And they're basically role-playing games, but they're like hack and slash. Because, I guess some of them it varies how much content there actually is to be able to go through. But these were like homemade games. And basically, like, people made these games on basically university computers, because this was back when, like, people didn't have their own servers, or there really weren't even companies that had the servers. Really, it was basically like the universities were the places where you could house a game like this. And I think it was usually like, I don't know, it was probably like the computer science program. I don't know everything, all the technical details about it. I just played one. But basically they were all, and I think still are, really. Unless, in some cases, they might have had to have been moved to somebody's basement or something. But I think for the most part, they're still in universities. And yeah, it's just a text-based game. It's like you type like kill monster and it kills the monster. And like I said, at least the one I played, I guess I shouldn't really make too I know kind of like the general gist of it, but I can really only speak with authority on the one MUD I played. But there's some content, like, there's quests that have to be done to reach certain levels and stuff. But for the most part, like, it's just a pure, like, repetitive grind. You just grind and make your character stronger. And like with this game, they expanded the grind to literally, you could be doing this shit for years and never max out your character. So it's just a never-ending grind, basically. And for a lot of people, this would just become, boring. They'd stop. But for, I don't know, certain kinds of brains like mine, it's just highly addictive, because there's really no, like, end point, It's just, you're constantly just wanting to like do this repetitive action. It's just like an addiction, It's kind of hard to even explain. I guess maybe a psychologist could explain it, but and I'm somebody that plays games, sadly, wish I didn't, but I got time on my hands and I play games. Like, I play grand strategy games, paradox type stuff. I love those. And I also like role-playing games, like regular role-playing games like Pillars of Eternity, Baldur's Gate kind of stuff. And I get into those. I guess addicted to them, but none of these are anything like this MUD, and it's really hard to explain. Some of it might be that I have a ton of history with the MUD. Now, this particular MUD, as you can imagine, most MUDs are dead at this point. This is like technology that was mildly interesting in like the early 1990s, and now it's like, there's so much better things you can do with your time. Who the hell's typing kill monster and then just getting nothing but text feedback saying, you slash the monster or whatever. But I have history with it, and so even though there's maybe like 2 or 3 people that still play this game, but back in the 90s it was like hundreds of people played it, and at any one time there was maybe like 20 people on there, which really, there's much bigger MUDs than this one, but just to give you an idea, there'd usually be like 20 people on. And there was all sorts of things going on in terms of interaction. There was like alliances, there were enemies and wars. Like, this was a known as a PK MUD. The player killing was not only allowed, it was pretty much encouraged. Like, this MUD like prided itself on just being a brutal place. And pretty much like the first thing that happens to you when you get on the MUD is some asshole that's been playing the game for years and is like much more powerful than you, just kills you just for shits and giggles. And at that point, back then you either quit or you were the type of person who's like, oh, this motherfucker, okay, someday I'm gonna get my revenge on this person. So that right there, like, selected for the kind of people, basically like a bunch of psychopaths and sociopaths and stuff. And it was just highly competitive. Like, you wanted to be better at the game than other people, and you wanted to be a higher level, and you wanted to kill people that had killed you. And then, like basically like a prison, you had to band together with other people. That was the only way to survive, So there were these like factions warring with each other and stuff. And it was really quite compelling from that standpoint back then. But now, and then, I played it back then, like early 2000s, and then I quit. Thankfully things happened in my life that got me away from it because it was so addictive. I joined the army and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't play it all the way until, which this was probably a huge mistake. Like a year ago, I was kind of just having like a hard time for whatever reason, just, going through some depression, whatever. And I was just like, I got some nostalgia for this game. And I started playing it again. And it's like just as addictive but now it's actually worse because it's addictive, but it's also like depressing because there's nobody left. There's nobody there. There's no factions. Anytime you go on, you could go on and be the only person on there, or most of the time you'll go on there, there'll be maybe like 2 or 3 other people. And for the most part, it's the same 2 or 3 other people. It's like, I don't even know why this game is still in existence, but there's like a couple of like diehards, like, complete addicts that are on all the time. And I don't know, it's just addictive. Like, I started a new character, and these addicts that are on there, they're like every addict, like they want more addicts. You know what I mean? So they try to like get you to stay on. Like every time I'm on, they're like, hey, do you want this awesome item? So that when you have this item, you want to stay on. Because the way the game works is it reboots every 6 hours, which is like a total just, that's another thing that I think people now would be like, this is bullshit, but I'm used to it. This is why like only people that are already addicted to it can play it. It can't really absorb new players for so many different reasons. Of course, one of them is the fact that it's text-based, but there's other little quirks too, like this thing where it boots every 6 hours, because back then the technology, like they didn't have the storage space. They couldn't store all this information about your character, so it was designed to only store like a certain amount of information about your character, but it couldn't save like what items you have and stuff, and it would start to overload the system if it had to save the changes that had happened to the environment. Like as you kill monsters and you drop items and stuff, there's all these changes to the basic paradigm of the game have to be saved into memory, and so the game was designed to reboot every 6 hours. The only thing that gets saved is like your character stats, your level and what attributes you've raised and stuff, but all your equipment and stuff gets erased, and the game goes back to its default state, and you have to kill the same monster to get the same item, like every time there's a new boot, which is every 6 hours. And then that causes problems where the game is built around that fact. Like there's some classes that, like the class balance is basically built around that fact, because there's some classes that are better for a whole 6 hour boot, but they're really slow to get themselves going in the first hour or whatever. And then there's other classes that you can more or less like jump on and play at any time. You don't need to play a whole 6 hours, but you get less out of them. That's kind of like the trade-off, or one of the trade-offs that class balance is based off of. And so even though the technology has improved, that none of that stuff was ever changed. It's still exactly the same. And back then in the 90s, there used to be so the people that run the game, the admins, are called wizards, and they used to add new things to the game all the time. They would add whole new areas and stuff, and they would make changes to the game, like class balance changes and all kinds of stuff. But now there's this thing is like hanging on by a thread. There's only one guy that has basically, because of his love for the game or whatever, he's volunteered to, like, you know, keep the game going. Uh, it might be in his basement. I don't even know where it is, but he doesn't actually do anything. There's no, not that he could anyway as one person. It used to be that there were like 10, 20 wizards, each working on different sections of the game and stuff. So this guy, he's just there, for like maintenance. So there's no upgrades being done to the game, no updates being done to the game, no new areas and all this stuff. I mean, it's a dead game basically, but it's still just so addictive. And like the people a couple of people that I was friends with when I used to play the game, like I talked to them and they're just like, I would never go back on there again. It's just too addictive. Like, I have a life now, I have kids and shit. And I was sitting there thinking, yeah, you're right, I should have never gone on this thing. But I don't know, I just thought it was an interesting, it's a little part of my life that I figured I'd talk about in a video. I guess if like you're looking for something to do and you want something that's going to take up like hours and hours every day, or at least you're going to want to spend hours on this thing, and maybe try it, but I wouldn't recommend it. I think you're probably a lot better off doing something productive like working out or reading books or something. But yeah, in my opinion, the most addictive games that there ever were. So I guess it's a good thing that they're gone. But I don't know. I see kids getting really addicted to modern games. So I don't know. I think it might just be a me thing. But for me, this was the most addictive probably thing. I mean, I've never been addicted to alcohol or drugs or anything. I mean, I can't even really say I'm addicted to sex because I'm married. I've been married for 13 years, so I really don't get much sex, and it's not really like the end of the world. I mean, I love it, but yeah, so this thing is probably the most addictive thing ever.